Well, I think that's the challenge of making a documentary about something like a serial killer is not to sensationalize it. I think there's plenty of content out there which does maybe sensationalize murder and serial killers and stuff like that. That's not what I think I and my team was trying to do on this project. We wanted to make something that was sensitive and was respectful to the actual real facts of the tragedies that occurred in this situation. And I hope that we've managed to achieve that while also telling a engaging and exciting story. It certainly was disturbing. And the more I researched, the more I read about it. I read the court papers, went through the court documents and the case files. You know, I'm not a trained journalist, so these things do affect me on an emotional level. And there was some photos in particular that I found quite difficult to digest, which were the photographs that the accused Mahanand Naik took of one of his young victims. And those photos were so kind of powerful in their raw emotion that it made me really want to kind of make them a centerpiece in the actual documentary itself, which we have done. I think at the beginning of every project, I wouldn't say second guessing, but certainly kind of contemplating whether this is the correct story to tell and whether there is any value in telling it beyond making a good story. So that is something that always occurs to me when I'm approached with work like this. I think in this case of the Dupatta Killer, there was very important and significant societal issues that could be brought up through the telling of this story. For instance, the fact that there's a group of women in Goa and in India who have essentially been dispossessed by their communities because they are above marriageable age, they are unmarried, they're not particularly well educated or skilled, so they're kind of like a forgotten group of people who are remarkably vulnerable to a predator like Mahanand Naik. And I think that exploring the life of these women is a useful aspect. The other thing that I think was useful about telling our story, which again made me want to tell it, was the fact that it's also about the justice system and whether a man like Mahanand Naik can be rehabilitated and should be allowed out at the end of their sentence. It's quite a complicated discussion, and one that I hope will be provoked by our documentary, whether or not justice has been done. I think that the police in the most recent investigation that started in 2009, the police actually did a pretty thorough and professional, efficient job. And I think that the police in this instance, the team that worked on it, should be commended for the work that they did. However, 10 years prior to that, 15 years prior to that, there was another police investigation which didn't do its research thoroughly enough and didn't investigate Mahanand. And if they had, he would have been stopped and 15 lives would have been saved. So there was a failing of the police in the mid-90s, but the police in the late 2000s did a very good job in putting him away. It's very, very hard to convict a serial killer because there's no real motive. Some of the crimes are very old. There's no physical evidence, so it's a lot of circumstantial evidence and witnesses that, as we explore in the film, aren't that willing to come forward. So it was very tough for the police, but they did manage to get 2 convictions which held up in the High Court, and that put him away behind bars. And I think that was what, obviously that was the intended outcome of the investigation. Unfortunately, we weren't able to gain access to the prison because Mahanand Naik declined to be interviewed by our team. But luckily, the journalist Mukesh Kumar, who we work closely with in Goa, already had an interview with Mahanand Naik. So if you watch the film, you will see an interview with the real serial killer, the man himself. So we do have his voice in the documentary. As far as people close to him, we actually went to his home village, Shiroda, where he used to live in Goa with his wife, and he'd lived there since childhood. So we spoke to his neighbors and we spoke to some of his cousins to find out more about his character and his childhood. So I think we got quite a decent picture of Mahanand Naik, although of course it's really impossible to know exactly what he's thinking and who he is.